Before I begin my talk today, I want you guys to think with me and I want to also make sure that you guys, I want to focus on 3 topics today. The first thing is education through empowerment. The second thing is dream big in order to achieve big. And the third thing is for you to realize your own potential by getting out of your comfort zone and realizing that you too can do great things. So this is kind of the main theme of my speech today. And wherever you are, no matter how old or young you are, I'm sure each of you wanted something, and each of you want to accomplish something or have a dream that you want to achieve. And growing up we also wanted to achieve certain things, and we also wanted certain things in life. Growing up in the States, when I was a kid, I wanted new toys, new books, and video games, just like most of you. And every single weekend, I would see many of my neighbors. I used to wake up really early in the morning. I would see a lot of my neighbors going outside and selling their used furniture, their kitchen appliances, and other belongings. And so I thought to myself, I said, why don't I do the same thing? But instead of selling my family's furniture, because I don't know how happy they would be about that, but why don't I sell my toys and my books and my video games so that I can do this, so that I can buy new ones? And so I pitched the idea to my parents, and I told them, well, Mom, Dad, can I sell my toys? And so they said, sure. So we woke up extra early on Saturday morning, and we set up, a couple of signs around our neighborhood and a small little shop, or it's called a yard sale. So we set up a yard sale, and I started selling my stuff. And I was talking to my mom last night, and she was telling me that, as I was selling my stuff, people were buying from me, even though they didn't need my stuff, but because I was negotiating and I was so passionate about wanting to sell my toys. And at a very young age, I realized that, there's no such thing as a free lunch. As much as you want to take, you also have to give. In order for me to get my new toys and to be able to buy all of these new things that I wanted, I had to sacrifice my time and my energy selling, even if I was 8 years old, in order to get something else. And I wasn't able to, and Saturday morning I wasn't able to sleep in, I wasn't able to watch cartoons or play with my brothers and sister. And so you realize in life that if you want to achieve something, you also have to make sacrifices. And when I was in high school, it was the same thing. And I'm sure, like many of you, and I'm no exception to this, we all wanted something. Whether you wanted to be part of a team, or you wanted to be part of a sports a club, or you wanted to get good grades, we all wanted to achieve something. In my case, I wanted to become the vice president of the Future Business Leaders of America. And what this meant is that I would be able to participate in programs, activities, and travel across America in order to meet America's businessmen and women and be able to learn from them. And so I did what any other dedicated person would do, and I went and I started campaigning, and I started working really hard, and I set my mind on becoming the vice president. And so after a while, a lot of campaigning and a lot of work, I was elected vice president of the Future Business Leaders of America. And when I was finally elected, my teacher came to me and he told me, Danya, you have to fill out this application form in order for you to travel. And so I was filling out the application form, and I got to the bottom, and I was looking at I got to the bottom of the paper, and at the bottom of the paper I found X amount of money. And I started looking at that piece of paper, and I felt, for a second, so devastated and so sad, because obviously, in order to travel, you need to pay for the travel expenses, and I knew that my family, as much as they wanted to, they wouldn't be able to financially support me. And I started crying, and I felt like the first time I wasn't going to be able to be in control of my own life, and that, I thought that if I was going to become the, FBLA president, vice president, that I would be able to learn and to be able to achieve my dream, and that the FBLA was my way of getting to where I wanted to be. And if I couldn't travel, then I wouldn't be able to accomplish my dreams. And as I was sitting down there, and as I was sitting there and crying, my teacher came up to me and he said, Danya, why are you crying? And so I told him, well, sir, I won't be able to be traveling. And he told me, is it because you won't be able to finance your travel ticket, your travel expenses? And I said, yes. And so he told me, that's not a problem. I said, what do you mean that's not a problem? He said, you know, it's not a problem. And he suggested that I sell candy around my school. And I go to Mountain View High School. I went to Mountain View High School in Tucson, Arizona, which has over 2,000 students. And so he told me, I'll buy the chocolate candy bars, and whatever profit that you make will go towards your expenses. And so I was like, okay, great, I have a second shot. I'll be able to do this, and I'm going to be determined, and I'm going to get enough money to be able to travel. And so the next day I woke up really early again, and I went to school, and then for a second I realized, like, uh-oh, how am I going to sell chocolate? What am I supposed to go up to people and be like, here, buy chocolate from me? Like, and I was wearing this scarf, and it was, you know, me and another girl in the entire university wearing the scarf, so I felt really intimidated, and I felt like I wouldn't be able to do this. And I panicked for a second. And then I realized, okay, you can either back down, or you can either get through this and not be afraid of any kind of rejection that'll come your way. And so I went to my teachers and I told them, is it possible for me to sell chocolate 5 minutes before you start your class, or 5 minutes before we end the period? And so they said, sure, why not? And so I started selling the chocolate, and I started selling the candy, and I started, slowly but surely I started knowing, you know, which people would get me the most chocolates, which areas, which times in my huge high school, so that I would be able to sell as much chocolate as possible. And within a month and a half, not only did I get enough money to cover my travel expenses, but I had even more I even had more. And so and each chocolate bar cost around 75 cents to $1, which is around 4 dirhams. So you can imagine how many chocolate candy bars I sold. And so this experience, like many experiences in our lives that, you know, shape us to the people that we become today and in the future, this experience taught me that there is no such thing as financial limitations. The only limitations are those which you set for yourself. So it helped me realize that if you want to do something, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to be willing to take risks, to be rejected, in order to get where you want to be today, or in order to achieve the kind of dream that you want. And it got me thinking to the United Arab Emirates, because after a while I moved to the United Arab Emirates, and it was the first Arab country that I had lived in, that I had ever lived in, and I was so impressed at how the UAE was able to develop and to grow in such a short period of time. And it got me thinking to how we people are similar to the United Arab Emirates, because at first we started out small, and we didn't know how to talk, but soon we learned how to talk, how to speak, how to talk, how to walk, how to grow. We started absorbing information, we started learning, and depending on the quality and the level of our education and the people around us, we were influenced and again become the people who we are today. And in a world where everything is changing, I realized that there was a recurring theme that was being said, or that was being mentioned by world leaders around the world. So if you look at speeches from Sheikh Zayed Allah Yarhamah, if you look at speeches from Professor Muhammad Yunus, Dr. Suad Sharif, if you look at all these politicians, these world leaders, there's one thing that they have in common, which is the importance of education. And governments around the world have realized that in order for a country to develop, in order for a country to grow and to progress, that education is, that they need to invest in education. Now, we ask ourselves, why is education so important? Why do countries need to focus on education? Why do countries' governments need to focus on education? Well, to put it simply, with education, we can create better doctors, better leaders, better teachers. We can create a better standard of living, and most importantly, we can reduce the level of poverty around the world. And so I started thinking, well, what's the difference between an advanced country and a not advanced country? How come one country is able to progress more than another one? And I realized that, and I was also wondering how governments were able to basically create countries that are developed. And so I started thinking to myself, well, it's because because governments can't single-handedly improve the country or improve the education system. What happened is multinational companies will basically donate funds, whether it's thousands to millions of dollars, to universities in order for students for universities in the form of donations through expanding their facilities, or through funds to grant for them to be able to pursue research. And so when a multinational company will donate money to, say for example, university, three things will happen. First, the university students and professors will have the chance to create research and develop their own ideas, and that could be the next big thing that will help the world in some small or big way. Second, the universities benefit because they then attract the best and the brightest students to come and study with them and use their facilities. And three, the companies themselves have the ability to commercialize on this new product or whatever is being made. And so you get to see how the world can be improved and can be better if we focus more on education. And so when you look at how education plays a role in people's lives, you get to realize how important it is for us to develop and for us to work on education. And so this is a picture of students working on robots and how to create engines that use less fuel. And so when I came to the UAE, I wanted to challenge myself, and I wanted to learn as much as I could from this growing nation. And so I started participating in local, national, and even global competitions. And one of the competitions that I was participating in was the Young Entrepreneurship competition. And what the Young Entrepreneurship competition is it allows for students to create and start their own business. So my friend and I decided to write a book on stress management, and as soon as we started working on the stress management book, we realized that if we wanted to do this, we had to win. So we tried our best and we worked our hardest in order to win. And we ended up winning, despite the challenges that we faced. So I thought to myself, okay, if I won once, I can win again. And so I decided to enter the competition again, except this time creating a business called Couture Exchange in order to help people who weren't necessarily able to afford the best quality clothes will now be able to afford these quality clothes at a lower price. And so I started working on that. And I started realizing how much resources you and I have at our disposal, and how much people and how many people would be willing to support us if we actually tried and if we actually pushed ourselves. And so I started thinking, and especially since we're living in a world where technology and where internet is at our fingertips, we have so many resources that we are not even utilizing. Now, my grandfather, Sayyid Muhammad Sharif, dedicated his life to helping other people become more educated. He worked in the Ministry of Libya, and he basically helped develop the education system through creating educational institutions where students would be able to learn practically and theoretically. And I realized what my dream was, that I too wanted to follow in his footsteps and also help empower people through education, but this time using social media. So, this time using social media. So I decided to join a group called Social Media for Change. And what this organization does is basically 90%, 1 billion people in the world are connected to the internet. But it's not just 1 billion people. It's around 90% of the world. Why? Because even if you're not connected to the internet, somebody you know will be connected to the internet. And if we are able to utilize the information that's on the internet to those areas where people might not have internet but know somebody that will, then we can help reduce the rate of poverty, and we can also help empower and educate other people to create a better life, a better standard of living, and give people the opportunity opportunity to learn that, say for example, didn't have educational or traditional educational learning. And so what the organization I work with does is, say for example, you're sitting at home and you're using your time on Facebook or Twitter, and you're just sitting there. So what we do is, everybody has some kind of hidden talent, or everybody has knowledge about a certain subject. So say for example, you know how to create a CV, or you know how to speak, or you know how to use PowerPoint Word, or you know how the world economy works, or you have some kind of knowledge that you can share with somebody else. And you basically will write it in a page and a half, you'll send it to us, and we'll translate it into more than 12 different languages and help spread it across the world in order for people who might not have the ability to learn in traditional form now have a chance to learn and create a better life for themselves. And as I come to the end of my speech, I just want to leave with you a couple of words. The most important thing for us is to dream big and achieve big. Second is to get out of our comfort zone so that we can release our potential, and that we can become the people that we want to be and hit our targets easier. Because if you don't have a plan, if you don't believe in yourself, then you'll never be able to do anything. And the third thing is empowerment through education. You need to educate yourselves, and you need to, and by educating yourselves and by empowering others, you're also empowering yourself. Thank you very much.